What's going on, good people? We are back outside in the lawn, and in this video we're going to talk about when you should start watering your lawn. And it may not be as early as what you think it is. So as you can see, we've got some warmer temperatures. We've been up and down, still up here in a sweatshirt, but we're going to talk about a very simple visual approach, and we'll mention a more scientific way of knowing when you should start watering your lawn. All right, let's get into this video. So first off, I don't like to start watering early in the spring. This is also going to vary depending on where you are location-wise. People further down south, of course, you're gonna warm up quicker. You're gonna start watering sooner than people that are further up north. But I do actually like to put a little bit of stress on the plant before I actually start turning on the irrigation or the sprinklers. So you want to start looking for some of those visual signs, which is going to be the first point that we're going to talk about before we actually start watering. It's not going to be based on a special time or certain calendar time of the year. Let the weather depend. Let the grass tell you when it's time to start watering. So let's jump into this first point, which is going to be visual or physical signs of when you should start watering your lawn. So coming out of the winter, your lawn's soil is pretty soft and you can feel it as you're walking through it. There's typically plenty of moisture from the rain, the snow, and all of that during the winter, and it wasn't that hot, so it was holding a lot of that moisture. So when your soil starts to firm up and actually become a little less malleable and a little less soft, that's kind of one of the first indications, but not always exactly when you should start watering your lawn. But that is one of the signs for you to pay attention to. The next thing is, a lot of us are now mowing. So we're out here, we're mowing the lawn, we're edging and things like that. So when you're mowing, if things are starting to get dusty, as you're making your string trimming edges, or you got some crisp live edges and you're starting to see dust bowls flying, or if you're cutting the main stage of your lawn and things are getting a little dusty, it might be time for you to start watering your lawn. And if you're at that point, it may be time sooner rather than later if you're seeing those type of situations. But that is one of the things that I started to notice in my lawn, that I was right on the edge of, hey, it may be time for me to put some water down. But I had rain coming in the forecast and I was waiting to see if we were actually going to get that rain, and we did, so I will continue to hold off. Another thing that you can do is actually probe your soil. So as you were getting ready to take a soil sample, you could actually pull a plug out of your soil, see where your soil moisture level is at. You can kind of see the depth of where your moisture is. And one of the things is, if it's hard to get that probe down into the soil, it may be drying out and it may be time for some moisture. So another way, visual or physical method of being able to determine if it's that time. But I would say the main way of doing this from a visual perspective, which is the one that I follow, is if I see visual changes in the lawn. So coming out of winter, like we are in that early spring phase, the lawn should be looking good. It should be pretty good once it gets out of dormancy and it's growing. So if you are starting to see changes from that good status, health status of the lawn to something a little less, you may want to start watering. And one of the key indicators of that is going to be like this dark or bluish hazing effect that you're starting to see in the lawn. And if you're looking across the surface of your lawn and you're starting to see spots of these dark or gray, blue grayish color hazes in your lawn, take a step closer, look at those areas, and you may start to see wilting of the leaf blade, where it's actually curling up. It's not as flat and wide as it normally is, and it's starting to curl up, which is a sign of it wilting and needing to have water. You can see this in the pictures that I'm showing here. You can see the dark areas that are actually showing signs of drought stress. And you can also see the wilting of the leaf blade. And you can also call that needling. And those are key signs that it is definitely time to get some water on the lawn if you do not have rain coming in the forecast. Okay, this next method is going to be a little more advanced, and it's going to take a little more information or data to come up with when you should actually start watering your lawn. So there's a thing called ET. I've talked about this previously on the channel. It is evapotranspiration. In simple terms, it's the loss of water from the plant. I know there's other definitions and other meaning behind it, but to kind of keep it simple, it's the plant losing water. So you can go back and look at the historical data on ET, and it's going to tell you over periods of time about the amount of water loss that's going to be happening based on the weather patterns during that period of time. You can also track shorter periods of time. So if you're looking back over the past 2 weeks and you're looking at your ET and you've lost a certain number of inches of water loss and you have not received enough rainfall to replace that ET that you have lost, it may be time for you to water your lawn. Typically, when we look at ET, we look at replacing a certain percentage of that water loss. So say over a week's period of time, if we lost an inch of water and we want to water back 50% of that water loss, we would put down a 1/2 inch of water for that week. So that is going to require you to need to know how much your sprinkler or irrigation system puts out in the volume of water. So this is why I say it takes a little bit more data for this method, but it is a very accurate measurement of when you should start watering your lawn. I do pay attention to ET to know how much water is being lost, and I also know the output or the volume of water that my irrigation system does put out. So I take these things into consideration when I'm watering throughout the lawn season. And right now I have not turned my irrigation on, but I was right on the edge of it. But we actually got some rainfall yesterday, which we really needed because things were starting to dry out. Certain lawns were starting to show signs of drought stress. This will depend on your location. As I said, it'll depend on your microclimates, whether you're full sun or if you've got some shade. So a lot of variables that go into play here, but you can take one of these two approaches, or you can take both, which I recommend, which is what I do, is combine the two. Look for those visual signs, but also monitor the data and know exactly what is happening. Put those two things together and you can have a solid plan to know when you should start watering, and also use this information throughout the season when it comes to your water. So if you are ready to get out into your lawn, the weather is nice, check this video out here for some early chores that you can be doing in your lawn right now to get this season off and going. All right, y'all, as I always say, just know we work.